Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Christopher Scholtes? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Christopher Ryan Scholtes was born in May 1987 and lived in Marana, Arizona. This is 21 miles northwest of Tucson. He studied biochemistry at Arizona State University, but it is not clear what he did for a living. Sometime around 2009, Christopher was charged with driving under the influence. He had no other criminal history. In October 2012, Christopher started dating a physician named Erica. The couple married and went on to have 3 daughters. Their youngest daughter was born in October 2021. Her name was Parker. The family lived in a 2,300 square foot house at 5160 West Peyton's Court. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On July 9, 2024, 37-year-old Christopher Scholtes called 911 at 4:16 p.m. and reported that his 2-year-old daughter Parker was unresponsive. He had left Parker in his vehicle, which was parked in his driveway. First responders arrived and transported Parker to a hospital where she was pronounced dead at 4:58 p.m. Her body temperature had reached 108.9 degrees. Parker's cause of death was environmental heat exposure. The police spoke to Christopher. Here is the story that he supplied to them. He and Parker had been driving around in his blue 2023 Acura MDX. At 2:30 p.m., Christopher arrived home and parked in the driveway. Parker was asleep in her car seat, which was in the back seat on the driver's side. Not wanting to wake her up, Christopher left his daughter in the vehicle and entered the house. When he left, the SUV was running with the air conditioning activated. From his prior experience with the vehicle, he believed the engine would turn off after about 30 minutes. At about 4 p.m., Christopher's wife Erica arrived at the house. When she asked where Parker was, Christopher began to check the rooms of the house. He then remembered that he had left Parker in the SUV. When Christopher went to the vehicle, he noticed it was not running and his daughter was still in her car seat. She was unresponsive. This is when he called 911. Erica performed CPR until first responders arrived. As all this was happening, Christopher's 9-year-old daughter and his 5-year-old daughter were in the house. Here is what the police found as they continued with their investigation. On July 9, the day Parker died, Christopher had been in a local grocery store alone. At 12:06 p.m., on his way back home from the grocery store, he stopped at a Quick Trip convenience store. This was about 4 hours before the 911 call. He entered the store alone, selected 3 cans of beer from the beer cooler, and walked into the restroom. Christopher exited the bathroom about 2 minutes later with at least 1 beer in his hand. At this point, he exited the store without making any attempt to pay for the beer. At 12:10 p.m., he drove away. Surveillance video from Christopher's neighborhood showed that his 9-year-old daughter and his 5-year-old daughter arrived at his house at 12:52 p.m. Christopher's SUV pulled into the driveway at 12:53 p.m., just 1 minute later. Media reports did not clarify what exactly happened there. Did Christopher drop his daughters off and then pull into the driveway, or did someone else bring them home? There's no way to know based on the available information, although I would guess that he just dropped them off. Christopher could be seen walking alone from his vehicle to the front door of his house. Based on the surveillance video, Christopher lied about his arrival time. He said he arrived at about 2:30 p.m. In reality, he had arrived home an hour and 37 minutes earlier. Erica arrived home at 4:08 p.m. The 911 call was placed 8 minutes later. Christopher's vehicle was parked in direct sunlight. Parker's car seat was on the driver's side, which was facing west. The police tested the SUV to see how long it would take to turn off when idling. The vehicle deactivated after 20 minutes. Christopher had told the police that it took around 30 minutes to turn off. He had left Parker in the vehicle for over 3 hours. The police interviewed Christopher's daughters. The children said that their father was a good dad and it was just an accident. He had been distracted by playing video games on his PlayStation and by putting food away. One of his daughters said that Christopher had left them in the vehicle alone about 59 times in the past. Christopher had a 16-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. She had lived with him and Erica for about 4 years. She told the media that Christopher had a history of leaving her in vehicles. She was younger than 7 the first time he did it. Christopher's daughter intends on testifying against him in court if the case progresses to that point. On July 12, 2024, 3 days after Parker's death, Christopher was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and child abuse. At a hearing to determine bail for Christopher, Erica told the judge, quote, "I'm just asking if you can allow him to come home to us so that we can all start the grieving process, so he can bury our daughter with us this coming week, and that we can go through this whole process together as a family. This was a big mistake, and this doesn't represent him. I just want the girls to see their father, that I don't have to tell them tonight that they're going to have to endure another loss." Unquote. The judge determined that Christopher was not a danger to the community and released him. On August 1, 2024, Christopher had his second-degree murder charge supersized to first-degree murder after a Pima County grand jury indicted him. The other charge related to mistreating his daughter remained the same. If convicted, Christopher could face the death penalty or life in prison, although I'd be very surprised if the state pursued the death penalty in this case. Now moving to my analysis. Based on Erica's statement to the judge at a bail hearing, she believes that Parker's death was a big mistake made by Christopher. It is reasonable to believe that Christopher feels the same way. I imagine his defense will involve working toward a manslaughter conviction as opposed to a murder conviction. Was the indictment for first-degree murder reasonable based on how the criminal justice system typically deals with these types of offenders? Can this charge be supported based on the evidence, or is the state overreaching? In the state of Arizona, a person can be found guilty of first-degree murder if, in the course of committing child abuse, they caused the death of a person. Technically, Christopher could be convicted of first-degree murder based on his alleged behavior. This brings me to the question, is Christopher guilty of first-degree murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. On the day of Parker's death, Christopher appeared to leave her in his SUV when he was at a grocery store and at a convenience store. It appears as though he drank beer at the convenience store and left without paying. After Christopher arrived home, he knew that Parker was in his vehicle. He noticed that she was sleeping. It's not like he failed to remember she was there. He decided to leave her in the SUV, even though the high temperature that day was 109 degrees. Furthermore, Christopher realized that his vehicle would turn off automatically. There is no question that Christopher's behavior caused Parker's death. Leaving her in the vehicle represented mistreatment and led to her death. After Erica arrived home, she asked Christopher where Parker was. He initially checked rooms in the house. Even when he was reminded about Parker, Christopher did not think of looking in the SUV first. When questioned by the police, he lied about how long he had been at home, saying he arrived an hour and 37 minutes after his actual arrival time. The police found a text message exchange between Erica and Christopher, which occurred right after Parker's death. Erica texted, "I told you to stop leaving them in the car. How many times have I told you?" Christopher responded, "Babe, I'm sorry." Erica wrote, "We've lost her. She was perfect." Christopher wrote, "Babe, our family, how could I do this? I killed our baby. This can't be real." Other text messages indicated that Christopher had a history of unsafe behavior regarding his daughters. For example, on March 11, 2024, Erica wrote, quote, "You haven't shown you can stop putting the girls in danger or treating me badly. Even yesterday you drove home drunk with 2 minors. You drink to excess every time. I have been asking for 3 years for you to cut back, but it's actually gotten worse." Unquote. 10 days later, Erica wrote, quote, "Why were you going 138 with our baby in the car with alcohol in your system?" Unquote. Christopher responded to this message, writing, quote, "You hate me. She was sleeping. It's fine." Unquote. Statements made by Christopher's daughters indicated that he had a long history of leaving them in his vehicle unattended. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Christopher intended to check on Parker every few minutes to make sure that she was okay in the vehicle. Perhaps he became distracted and failed to remember. That's pretty much it for exculpatory factors. When considering the evidence in this case, do I believe Christopher is guilty of first-degree murder? Yes, in my opinion, he is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. His best hope would be to work out some type of plea bargain to spend decades in prison while retaining a chance of being released someday. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Christopher was self-centered, impulsive, irresponsible, immature, reckless, and appeared to have difficulty regulating his intake of alcohol. He lived his life as if he was invincible. Nothing bad could ever happen to him. He could just do whatever he wanted, and things would work out for the best. Christopher had a long history of leaving his daughters in his vehicle, which apparently his wife Erica knew about. She had warned him multiple times to stop, but Christopher did not listen. On the day of the alleged murder, Christopher was behaving irresponsibly and struggling with his alcohol use. He couldn't even make it home from the grocery store without stopping at a convenience store and drinking beer. After arriving home, he left his daughter Parker in the SUV, consistent with his philosophy that nothing bad could ever happen. The consequences were not even considered. He was so confident that everything would be fine, he didn't even remember Parker's location when Erica asked about her. Christopher is a dangerous individual who should be in prison. He should have been there a long time ago. Now moving to my final thoughts. Erica suggested that her husband Christopher made a big mistake which did not represent him. She is incorrect. This tragic outcome was predictable based on Christopher's behavior. It does represent him. Pretty well, in fact. The lesson learned in this case is that when somebody repeatedly endangers others, action must be taken. It's dangerous to fall into the same pattern as the offender of believing that everything will magically work out for the best. People who are unable or unwilling to regulate their intake of alcohol try to convince family members that they don't have a problem. In doing so, they also try to convince the family members that no one has a problem. Everybody will be safe, even if the drinking continues. This case illustrates how nothing could be further from the truth. Those are my thoughts on the case of Christopher Scholtes. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.